بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعد أما بعد. Jazakumullah khairan to Hafiz Ahmad for the beautiful recitation. With the month of Ramadan coming close, very close, only about 3 weeks left to the month of Ramadan, it's necessary that we inshallah prepare for the month of Ramadan. And in preparing for the month of Ramadan, we need to prepare mentally as well. That mentally we should be ready that Ramadan is coming, and in the month of Ramadan this will be my schedule, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to not do. And then together with mentally being prepared, we also should be physically prepared. Physically, whatever we need to do to prepare for the month of Ramadan, we should do that. So in the physical preparation comes maybe trying to fast a few days in the month of Sha'ban, right? Similarly, taking care of our other physical necessities that are there before Ramadan starts, so we don't become busy in the month of Ramadan as much as we can. These are some examples of physical preparations. And then third is in regards to the knowledge of Ramadan, that whatever knowledge we need to acquire related to the month of Ramadan, or even if we know it, to refresh our memory in regards to it. What are the basic rulings of fasting of the month of Ramadan? How do I need to fast? What do I need to take care of in my fast? What do I need to make sure I do not do in my fast? Right? Zakah, a lot of people discharge the zakah in Ramadan, so what are the masail of zakah? We need to be aware of that. And any other masail that we should know, or we should refresh our memories in regards to, we should do that before the month of Ramadan. So one we said was the mental preparation, and then we said the physical preparation. Third was in regards to the knowledge preparation. And fourth is the spiritual preparation. That spiritually we should start preparing ourselves for the month of Ramadan. We should do tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should try and connect closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, build our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we should start staying away from sinning, and we should become more inclined towards ibadah before the month of Ramadan comes. And we should do tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before even the month of Ramadan starts. So spiritually prepare ourselves for the month of Ramadan. So in this aspect, we keep this Road to Ramadan program every year and try and discuss the different aspects to prepare for the month of Ramadan. So inshallah today we'll be discussing the knowledge perspective in regards to fasting itself. Right? So we have the table of contents here. We'll try and go through as much as we can in timely fashion so that we can cover all the important aspects related to the month of Ramadan. Some things we may already know, some things is there to refresh, because learning knowledge is also a very important form of ibadah. So whether it's knowledge that we already know and we're refreshing, or whether it's something new, it doesn't matter. Ilm is ilm, right? And to go out and seek ilm and make intention of learning knowledge, this itself is virtuous. So we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He helps us in this journey of ilm today, and helps us learn whatever we can and refresh our memories in regards to whatever we are able to, inshallah. So we'll begin, inshallah. And first we'll speak about the obligation of fasting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the obligation in the first verse we said about Hafiz Ahmad mentions Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam. So fasting is something which is prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and just how Allah made fasting obligatory upon each and every ummah, although the form of the fasting may be different, but fasting was there for every nation, every ummah. So even on this ummah, Allah made fasting obligatory, right? And what is the purpose of fasting? So that we can be mindful of Allah, we can gain taqwa, right? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. This is the purpose. And there's a hadith also, one hadith in regards to fasting. So we have the famous hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam reported by Sahih Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, where Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that Islam is based on 5 pillars, and from there the 5th thing he mentions in the hadith is Sawmi Ramadan, fasting in the month of Ramadan. So it's established from the Quran, established from the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now before we continue, what is the definition of fasting? What is fasting? What is the linguistic definition? What is the Shari'i definition of fasting? So in regards to fasting, the linguistic meaning of fasting of Sawm means to abstain from, to stay away from, right? So to stay away from what? So the linguistic meaning in Arabic of Sawm means to stay away from, to abstain from. What is the Shari'i meaning, the legal definition, the legal meaning? To abstain from eating, drinking, and relations during the daylight hours with the intention of fasting performed by one capable and required to do so. Now this may seem a little bit technical, but we're going to inshallah break down the legal meaning of fasting so that we understand it better, inshallah ta'ala. So the first part means of the definition is to stay away from eating, drinking, and all kinds of relations. What does this mean? So we're going to discuss this in more detail later, but just to give a little bit overview, that in regards to food, because eating and drinking is something which is, which is related to everyone, something which is normally permissible for us to do, right? So in terms of eating and drinking, there are two categories. One is actual eating and drinking, eating actual food, something which is nutritious, something which is customarily eaten, which people normally eat. To eat something which is actually food. And second is to eat something which is not actually food, but it can fall into the ruling of food and drink if you eat it. So it's not really food by nature, but if someone partakes of it, then it can come into the ruling of food at some point. So this is a thing. The second part of the definition is during the daylight hours. So to abstain from eating, drinking during the daylight hours. What are the daylight hours? So in the Sharia, the day starts from the time Fajr begins, the Tulu' al-Fajr, the Subha Sadiqa. Not from sunrise, from the beginning time of Fajr. This is when the day starts, and this is when our fast starts. So from the beginning time of Fajr, from Tulu' al-Fajr, from Subha Sadiq as we call it, from there all the way until Maghrib sunset, this is the day. So this is the time when we need to abstain from those things which we mentioned in the previous slide. The third part of the definition is with the intention of fasting. If someone just stays hungry but doesn't have any intention of fasting, right? They just stayed hungry all day, they didn't eat, they didn't drink, then their fast will not count. You have to have an intention. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. The most important part of any ibadah is having the intention, right? Intention is what can make a customary action rewardable as well. An intention is something which can make something which is, otherwise, which can change a lot of things. It can make a person, fall into haram as well. If a person performs salah with the wrong intention, a person can be sinful. If a person, and so doing a good action with a bad intention can also be a problematic. Doing a bad action with a good intention, that's not going to get you anywhere, right? So an intention has to be there. And if you do an action, a good action, but you don't have any intention, you won't get any reward for it. And according to some fuqaha, they say that if you don't have any intention, then forget about just reward, your action won't even count. So according to some fuqaha, if you do wudu but you don't have intention, your wudu won't count, right? So in regards to which actions have to have an intention, not, there's difference amongst the different schools of thought, right? But as far as fasting goes, everyone says you have to have an intention. So intention is in the heart. You don't have to verbally say your intention. I know we have the dua that everyone says, right? نَوَيْتُ أَنْ أَسُومُ لَكَ غَدًا إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى, or any other similar dua. That is there to help us make sure we have the intention. But if someone doesn't verbally say that, but in their heart they know, I am going to fast tomorrow, or I am going to fast today. You wake up in the morning, you do your suhoor, and you know in your heart you're going to fast, that is enough. Intention is in the heart. The last part is performed by one capable and required to do so. This is the last part of the definition. Now, capable, what does capable mean, right? And upon whom is fasting required? So we have three aspects here. To be Muslim, to be sane, aqil, and number three, to be mature and baligh. If someone is not a Muslim fasting, the hukum of fasting is not upon them because they're not Muslim. If someone is insane, or they're not in the right state of mind, they have gone mad, right? Then again, fasting is not obligatory upon them. If there's a child who is not baligh yet, who is still a young child, fasting is not obligatory upon that child. So first is these are capable, right? Or this is upon whom fasting is obligatory. Now when will the fasting be necessary upon these people if further the conditions mentioned below are also met? That number one, they have to, so if one fulfills these above conditions, now fasting will be necessary upon them, but is it necessary at that moment or later? So if it's necessary, in order to be necessary at that moment, we have these 3 points below. That number one, they have to physically be able to fast. Number two, for a lady, she has to be free from her monthly cycle. And number three, a person has to be a resident, not traveling. That does not mean if you're traveling, you cannot fast. No. What it means, if you're a traveler, you don't have to fast at that time. You can make up the fast later. But if you're not a traveler, you're a resident, you have to fast at that time in the month of Ramadan. We're going to discuss all this in more detail later. Now, breaking down in regards to the intention, right? So intention has to be made before each fast to count. Now, talking about fasting in general, not specifically the Ramadan fasting, the fasting it can be split into two categories, and depending which category the type of fast you are doing falls under, then the intention will need to be made at a certain time. So we have, so for example, before we go into that, just one thing: if a person had no intention, they just forgot to eat or drink from dawn, from time of Fajr all the way till Maghrib, they never ate, right? But they didn't have any intention, that's not fasting. Now, there's two times of making the intention, right? Depending on which category the fast falls under. So one time of intention is before Fajr. But before Fajr time comes in, you have to make your intention. So for certain kinds of fast, the intention has to be made before Fajr. The second category, the intention can be made any time up to midday. Dahwat al-Kubra. We'll explain this as well. Now, depending what kind of fast you are doing, the intention will need to be made at one of these two times. Now, what is Dahwat al-Kubra? What is Islamic midday? So the midway time between Fajr until Maghrib. If you look at the midway point, this is Dahwat al-Kubra. So let's say, for example, Fajr is at 4 a.m., meaning Fajr time begins at 4 a.m. And let's say Maghrib sunset is at 8 p.m. So this is a summer day, for example, right? So the day the Subh Sadiq was 4 a.m. and sunset Maghrib is 8 p.m. So the exact time in between is called Dahwatul Kubra. So in this example here, the time in between will be 12 p.m. right? So right the middle time, this is Dahwatul Kubra. So for the second category of fasting, intention needs to be made before midday, before Dahwatul Kubra. So you can wake up in the morning, even though you don't have intention yet, but you don't do anything against the fasting, and you make your intention any time before this time, before midday, then your fast will count. Now for which type of fast when does the intention need to be made? So for the time before Fajr, for which fasts does the intention need to be made before Fajr? So number one, if you're making a qada fast of Ramadan, you need to make the intention before Fajr, the night before basically, right? Before Fajr. For fast of kafara, what is kafara? We'll explain that later. For fast of an unspecified oath, right? So sometimes people make an oath or nadar, as we call it, mannat, nazar, right? So if it's a unspecified nadar, mannat, that for example, if I pass my exam, I will fast 3 days, but you don't mention which 3 days or when, just in general. So for that, you have to make the intention before Fajr. For the second category, for Ramadan fasting, right? For the Ramadan fasting that you're doing in the month of Ramadan at that time, at the correct time. For nafil fasting, and for fasting of specified oaths, right? For those oaths which you make a specific time. For example, if I pass my exam, then I will fast the first 3 days in the month of February. Or I will fast the middle days of Sha'ban, for example, right? I will fast the Ayyam al-Bid of Sha'ban if I pass my exam. So that's specified. So for those fasts, you need to make the intention anywhere before midday on the day you are fasting, with some conditions which we'll discuss. Intention of Ramadan fast, because we're talking about Ramadan fasting. So intention can be made any time from Maghrib of the night before till Dahwatul Kubra, till Islamic midday. You can make your intention of fasting. Now, what are some mustahabbat in fasting, some desirable acts in fasting? So number one, to take the suhoor, sahri meal, right? So the difference, it comes in the one hadith, that tasahharu fa inna fi suhoori barakah, that take suhoor because there's barakah in suhoor. In another hadith, we understand that the difference between our fasting and the fasting of others is that we do suhoor before our fasting for this ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we should do suhoor, even if it's just a sip of water or eating one date, we should have something with the intention of suhoor. It's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. To partake of dates in suhoor. This is a separate sunnah. So one is to do suhoor and to take dates. Generally in our minds, dates is something for breaking the fast. But it is also mustahab to eat dates for suhoor. So when we have suhoor, we should have at least, once dates with the intention of fulfilling the sunnah of Rasulullah ﷺ. Right? And this is a hadith of Abu Dawood. To delay the suhoor until a little bit before dawn, Subh Sadiq. So many of our young friends, what do? They don't like to wake up early. So what they do, they eat something and they'll go to sleep and then they won't wake up for suhoor. They'll wake up, inshallah, hopefully for fajr, right? But not for suhoor. So the mustahab time for suhoor is right before fajr, right? So the last portion of the night before fajr is the mustahab time. But if for some reason someone, maybe they have to go to work early or something, or their schedule doesn't allow them, they want to do suhoor early, they want to eat before they go to sleep and then go to sleep, that's fine, that will still count, inshallah, right? But the mustahab time is right before suhoor. And the fourth one is to end the fast immediately after sunset. So as soon as Maghrib time comes in, to break the fast right away. As soon as the time comes in, do not delay, right? It comes in a hadith of Sahih Al-Bukhari, that people will remain on goodness as long as they hasten in opening the fast. So not to delay in opening the fast. This is what some Ahlul Bid'ah do. They delay in opening the fast. We should not do this. To break one's fast with dates, fresh or dry if available. If dates are not available, then to break it with water. This is also the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we can see in this hadith mentioned over here in the bottom. Right? That he used fresh dates before he prayed, before Maghrib, right? As soon as the time came in, the adhan happened, he would first break his fast, eat some fresh dates. If there's no fresh dates and dry dates, otherwise a few sips of water. If not, even that's not available, whatever is available, to eat that. Preferably something which is fresh and sweet, if possible. So let's say dates are not there, but there's some fruits, eat some fruit. What are some makruhat? So again, that's not an exhaustive list, it's just an example of some. What are some examples of makruhat, disliked actions in fasting? To chew gum, rubber or something. So to chew something which is inedible, right? To taste food or drink and then spit it out. Except for a wife, if she's cooking food for a hot-headed husband, then for her it's fine. Right? To just taste the food without swallowing it while she's making it during the day, right? Just to make sure there's enough salt, enough spice inside, that's permissible for her. But besides that, to taste the food and then spit it out. To collect your saliva and then swallow it. Now this will not break your fast, but this is makruh. To gargle more than necessary. To complain of hunger and thirst, this is also makruh. To take water up the nostrils more than necessary when cleaning the nose. To intentionally delay in farad ghusl, an obligatory bath, until after dawn. Now let's say someone wakes up in the morning, it's time for suhoor, there's only 20 minutes left. Now you're in need of ghusl. Let's say someone is in need of ghusl, but there's not enough time. If you do ghusl, you won't have time for suhoor. So at that time it's fine, you can have your suhoor, it will not affect your fast, and you can do your ghusl later, even if it's after the time of Fajr comes in. But if possible, it's always better that if a person is in need of ghusl, farad ghusl, then they should do their ghusl first, before the time of fasting begins. Right? So that's good to do that, but if you don't do that, it will not have any effect on the fast. To use toothpaste to clean one's teeth. So meaning that using toothpaste without the toothpaste going inside the throat, that will break the fast, that's coming ahead. So just to use toothpaste, even if it doesn't go down the throat, this is makruh. However, to use a miswak is sunnah. To quarrel, argue, use filthy language. To backbite, to tell a lie, to swear. These things are sinful acts even when you're not fasting. So in fasting, it's even worse to do these actions. What are some things which will break the fast? Invalidators, mufsidat of fasting. Those things which break the fast. So now, it's important to understand over here that there's two categories of things that break your fast. The first category, that if you do that, you will have to do qada, make up the fast, and you will also have to do kafara, fasting 60 consecutive days. Both. That is the first category. Second category of invalidators, the mufsidat. If you do it, there's no kafara, there is only qada. You only have to make up the fast. Right? Kafara will be explained later. Now, the things that break your fast are two things. These two categories have relations are food and drink. Right? The first one. So I'm going to quickly just go over this and show the slides over here. Alright, we're not going to discuss it too much detail. We have some young children over here as well. So elders can just read it, inshallah. One is actual, one is effective. Right? The actual will break your fast and you have to do kafara, and effective is just qada only. It will not, there's no kafara for that. If someone needs further explanation, they can come to me later and I'll explain it. For food and drink. Now pay attention here. Now we're going back to the food and drink. In the beginning we explained it in very in a summarized manner. Now it's more detailed here. So we're going to again break down the category of food and drink into two: actual and effective. Actual means those things which you normally eat, like this delicious burger, this orange juice. I don't think we're getting burgers today. Maybe next time, inshallah. But so actual food, right? Second thing is like how a lot of kids have a habit of eating their pencil eraser, eating some paper. Some people eat mud. There are people who have some kind of illness inside and they eat mud. So eating something which is not normally food, right? This is called effective. So actual and effective. So depending which category the food, meaning the item which you're eating, falls under, it will have a different ruling. So now, when we talk about food and drink, we have to look at four things, and we're going to explain these four things. Number one is what is the substance? What is the item that you are eating or drinking, right? Number two, the entry point, the cavity. That food that you are eating or drinking, the nutrition that you are taking, where is it going inside your body from? From which point of entry is it going inside your body? Number three, after it goes into your body, where does it get to? Where does it end up? That's third. And four, was there any valid excuse or not? Was there any shari'i excuse? So these four things will determine whether the thing that we consumed, which we took inside, whether the nutrition that we took will break our fast or not, is dependent on these four factors. So number one, the substance of consequence. So any liquid, solid or gas, which has a perceptible body and can be seen, like for example, smoke of inhaler, cigarette, etc. This is substances of consequence, meaning if these items go inside your body, then it could break your fast. Number two is entry points. We have three entry points: the nose, the mouth, and the back passage. Right? These are three entry points. So these are the only entry points which are medically established to have a connection with the digestive system. The ears is also an opening, but that will not break your fast under normal circumstances. The eyes is also an opening, but under normal circumstances, anything that goes inside the eyes from here will not break your fast. Right? So those are some examples. You could put things in your body from something which is not an opening, like injection inside the vein, but that's not an opening of consequence, right? So we're going to discuss this later, inshallah. Any of the entry points are not cavities of consequence, meaning they're not a place where it goes in from there, it will not break the fast. Mas'ala. Eardrops will not invalidate the fast. Unless a person has a perforated, meaning a ripped eardrum, then in that case, because the eardrum stops anything from going further in. So if there's no eardrum, if a person's eardrum is damaged, then if you put something in the ear, that could break your fast. Otherwise, generally, the eardrum will not break your fast. So one interesting point is that all the traditional fuqaha in their books, they have written that anything goes inside the ear will break the fast. But you can say the later fuqaha, or you can say the contemporary fuqaha, the contemporary jurists, they have mentioned that medical science has proved that if something goes in your ear, it does not end up in your stomach, as long as the eardrum is there. So that is why if something goes into your eardrum, like eardrops or oil or something you put in your ear will not break your fast. So this is the Mufti Adnaan, this is the accepted fatwa for the contemporary muftis that they give fatwa on. So the fast, so far what did we discuss? The fast will be invalidated when a substance of consequence, meaning solid, liquid or gas, enters through a cavity of consequence, meaning your nose, your mouth or your back passage. Number 3, it ends up in a place of consequence. So anything which is connected to your digestive system. So anything that ends up in your throat or your stomach or your intestines. Because something goes in your throat, then goes in your stomach, then goes in your intestines. But how about if you inject something directly into your intestines or your stomach? So that will also break your fast, right? If it's nutritious, right? So if anything ends up in one of these 3 places, so the third part of the third, you can say the third condition is fulfilled, right? So place of consequence. So fast will be invalidated when a substance of consequence, solid, liquid or gas, enters through a cavity of consequence, nose, mouth, back passage, reaches a place of consequence that we just mentioned over here, right? And number 4, the fourth point, as long as there's no excuse. Now what is excuse? Forgetfulness, we'll discuss this later, right? And food stuck in the teeth, if it's smaller than an uncooked chickpea, this also we're going to discuss later, right? So excuse, if there's a valid, if all the 3 previous ones happened, they took place, you had, for example, a solid, liquid or gas, it went inside your stomach from the correct passage and it ended up in the right place, but you had a Shari'i excuse, an excuse which was acceptable in the Sharia, then your fast will not break. But if there's no excuse, then your fast will break. So if these 4 conditions are fulfilled, then your fast will break. Okay? Things that you're not able to guard yourself. Why do we mention this excuse point? Because if it's something you're not able to guard yourself from, right, then it doesn't break your fast. For example, you did wudu, now the water that remains in your mouth, you spit it out, but there's still some droplets that remain. You can't do anything about that, right? You showered, now there's some dampness maybe, right? For example, you have mucus, not saliva. This is always there. Saliva may end up on your lips and then it goes back inside, right? Or a person is walking like this with their mouth open and then a fly goes in. This is something you cannot do anything about, right? So these are like some valid excuses. Example of invalid excuses: accidentally eating or drinking. Just one point. Over here it says accidentally. Previously we had a word called forgetfulness. We're going to describe these different words later on, inshallah. Forgetful and accidental, we're going to describe this later. Okay? So there's a difference between the 2. Invalidating the fast out of necessity. So if you break the fast because you had to, but it's, like for example, you got really hungry or thirsty, right? Or a person, let's say the sugar went up so they had to eat something. This is a valid excuse, but it still breaks your fast, right? It's not like your fast will not break if you eat, right? If you're forced to eat, this will also break your fast. This is an invalid excuse. Missing the fast due to sleeping, this is an invalid excuse. Missing the fast due to unconsciousness is also an invalid excuse. Missing the fast due to insanity is an invalid excuse. Unawareness or not having knowledge, right? So a person, for example, they did something which breaks a fast, right? But they didn't know it breaks a fast. Or on the other hand, they did something which does not break the fast, right? But they thought it breaks the fast. So they ended up eating and drinking after that. This is not a valid excuse. This is an example given there. I'm not going to go into too many details. Let's just say, for example, cupping. Cupping does not break the fast. But there is a hadith which mentions something along those lines, but it has an explanation. Right? There's an explanation to the hadith. So let's say someone just read the hadith, they didn't know the explanation, and they read that cupping breaks the fast. Right? And they did cupping. You say, oh no, my fast is broken, now I can eat and drink. But then they got told by a mufti that, wait, cupping does not break your fast. Right? So the eat and drink which they did will break their fast and they will have to do a qada later on. That's not a valid excuse. Not knowing is not a valid excuse in the Sharia. So this is the conclusion, that if these 4 conditions are met, then the fast will be invalidated. Now, how do we know what is necessary? Okay, so now we're going forward and explaining that, what necessitates qada and kafara, and then what necessitates only qada. We're going to break up to 2 categories of invalidators. So those things which make qada and kafara necessary, both. So number 1, eating, drinking, or breaking the fast in any other manner, deliberately without a valid reason. So on purpose, a person ate or drank, right? A teenager went to school, they saw all the kids eating, they thought, I'll just eat also, no one is looking at me, and they ate some lunch and they went back home and they pretended they never ate. That will break your fast, and because you broke your fast on purpose, a person will have to do kafara. Not just qada, they will also have to do kafara. To take any type of medicine intentionally, even though you need the medicine, but if it's intentionally, you are taking it, right, through the mouth or applied through the nose without a valid reason, right? So this will necessitate qada and kafara. So once again, if this is done without a valid reason, if medicine is taken with a valid reason, you will not have to do kafara, you only have to do qada. For example, a person, they had to take, they had to take medicine, they got really, really sick, really high fever, they had to take medicine, but that's an excuse. So the fast will break, but they will only have to do qada. But let's say a person just has a habit of taking medicine, so they just took a Tylenol in the middle of the day for whatever reason, without needing to do it. So that means that they intentionally ate or drank, they will have to do qada and kafara, right? Now, in regards to injections, anything that that is intravenous or intramuscular, meaning an injection directly to the vein, directly to the muscles, does not break the fast. We're going to talk more about this later, inshallah. To have relations while you remember you are doing it. So intentionally having relations with one's spouse while fasting. So we have these 3 points. They necessitate qada and kafara, both. Right? So now we're going to discuss these 3 terms. Because over here, we discussed one word that came up was deliberately, without a valid reason. Deliberately. Right? That's the word that we have been mentioning in these slides of qada and kafara. Right? So we're going to break down what is the difference in deliberate, forgetful, and accidental. So deliberately eating or drinking, let's take that as an example, necessitates qada and kafara. Deliberately means you're doing it on purpose, you know you are doing it, and you remember you are fasting. On purpose you eat and drink. This is deliberate. Forgetful, a person came home from school or work, it totally slipped their mind that they're fasting. They have a habit of, for example, drinking some water, having a snack when they come home. So they were fasting the whole day, they came home, and as per their habit, they just went and had a snack. And then they remembered, I was fasting. So that's forgetful. They forgot they were fasting at that moment. So this does not break your fast, right? Forgetfulness is an excuse. Accidental. You know you are fasting, right? But you accidentally eat something. What does that mean, accidental? Meaning you know you are fasting, you put something in your mouth, you didn't want to swallow it. You swallowed it by mistake, but you knew you were fasting. The best example for this is a person is doing wudu, they know they are fasting, they are doing wudu, they gargle, and the water goes down the throat in wudu. Right? So you didn't mean to do it, but it went down. This will break your fast, but you have to do only qada, because it was accidental. You didn't want to do that. It happened. By mistake, it slipped down inside your throat, the water. Right? So this is only qada. What makes only qada necessary and not kafara? Okay, so we mentioned that. So this is basically not doing the actual act, but self-stimulation, okay? That we can explain that inshallah later separately. If anyone has a question, the youngsters especially, can come to me and we'll explain that inshallah. Accidentally eating, knowing that you are fasting. So accidentally eating, that we mentioned, the example we gave now. So not deliberately, not forgetfully, accidental. You know you are fasting, your intention was just to put that thing in your mouth and spit it back out, but then it went inside your throat. This is accidental. So only qada. Intentionally swallowing something which is not real food or drink. So little few slides back we had the category of actual eating and drinking and effective eating and drinking, effective food. So the second category, effective food, meaning something which is not normally eaten or drunk, right? You eat or drink something like that. For example, a pebble, a piece of paper, your pencil eraser, right? You put that in your mouth and you swallowed it. This is effective food and drink, right? So it's something which is not normally eaten and something which is normally not used as a medicine, right? This necessitates only qada. A person thinks there's still some time left for Fajr and you continued eating. Or you saw the wrong time. You thought that the time ends at 5:55 but it ends at 5:45. right? So if you eat, this is a common question. People ask it all the time. That I was eating and I thought that suhoor begins at, suhoor ends at, this time, but then I realized later it ended 5 minutes earlier or 10 minutes earlier. This, you will have to do qada. You will have to stay hungry for the rest of the day and act as if you're fasting, but it will not be a fast. You will have to make it up later as well, right? So this is a common question. Same thing for Maghrib, that if you, let's say, you broke your fast 5 minutes early by mistake, you thought it was the time to break your fast, but it wasn't, right? This is also will break your fast and you have to do a qada later, right? So same thing as we mentioned. No. Inhaling medicine through the mouth or nose, right? So taking medicine, eating medicine, or inhaling it through the nose will break your fast. Now again, if this is done due to a necessity, it's only qada. But if there's no necessity and you had no need to take that medicine, but you still took it on purpose, then it's qada and kafara, as we mentioned in the back. But over here, the example we're giving is you needed to take the medicine. You felt ill, you had to take it, right? Your situation was really, really bad, right? And you took it, so it will break your fast, but it's only qada. You swallowed water by accident in wudu or ghusl, right? This means that water you put in, not that you spit out the water and the water that's remaining in your mouth. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the water that you put in your mouth and it's still there and you swallow that. It's qada. If someone forces you to eat something, right? This is not a Sharia excuse. If you're forced to eat or drink something, then also your fast will, no, if you're forced, you didn't deliberately do it, you were forced to do it, so your fast will break, but it will be only qada, not kafara. To purposely inhale smoke or steam or anything with a perceptible body, this will break the fast and qada is necessary. Swallowing toothpaste or mouthwash, qada is necessary. No kafara, qada. If a person uses nasal spray if it reaches the throat. So normally when you put a spray in your nose and it will reach the throat, right? So this will necessitate qada. Swallowing blood from the gums if the blood is more than the saliva with which it is mixed. So a person starts bleeding from their gums and the blood exceeds the saliva by 50%, so it's 50% or more. When it's mixed with the saliva, then the fast will break. If it's less than that, the fast won't break. Now vomiting, people get confused, because one is vomiting when it comes in relation to breaking the wudu, that's different. Over here we're talking about vomiting, breaking the fast. Right? Vomiting with wudu, once it reaches a mouthful, your wudu breaks. But that's different. Over here we're talking about vomit which breaks the fast. Then we have two. One is vomit, which is less than a mouthful. There's no consequence. Right? This is for fasting again, if it breaks your fast or not. Then you have vomit, which is more than a mouthful. Right? So whether it comes out in one go or it comes out in 2-3 goes, but at the same time, right after one another, it's still, then in that case we'll add it up, right? But it's a mouthful. So if it's more than a mouthful, if it's induced means that you purposely made yourself vomit. Like you took your finger, you stuck it in your throat and you made yourself vomit. This is called induced. So if a person makes themselves vomit on purpose and it's more than a mouthful, then qada will be necessary. But if vomit is less than a mouthful or more than a mouthful, but it came out by its own, right? It came out on its own. You didn't make it come out. Even if it's more than a mouthful, this will not break your fast. Right? Unless you swallowed the vomit deliberately. So if the vomit was, more than a mouthful and you swallowed it deliberately, then your fast will break. But if it was more than a mouthful and you did not swallow it, or if it was more than a mouthful and you did not swallow it on purpose, it just went back inside on its own because of the reflux, right? On its own, some of it went back inside. Then in that scenario, there's no consequence, it will not break your fast. Is that understood? Any questions about that? Okay. Now how about, another common issue is food stuck in the teeth. We had suhoor, we brushed, but we didn't brush properly because there was very less time left, and now you still have food stuck in your teeth, right? Now what do we do? Right? So if there's food stuck in your teeth and you eat it, does it break your fast, does it not break your fast? So once again, there's different categories here. One is swallowed without taking it out of the mouth. So there's food stuck in your teeth, you never picked it out of your mouth. It's still in your mouth, it's between your teeth, and you took it out with your tongue and then you swallowed it, right? Now this will be two scenarios. Either it will be bigger than the size of a chickpea, in which case qada is necessary, or the food which was stuck between your teeth, and you took it out of your teeth and you swallowed it without taking it out from your mouth, was less than the size of a chickpea, then there's no consequence. It will not break your fast. Now the chickpea we're referring to here is an uncooked chickpea, not a chana which is nice, big and juicy and cooked or boiled, right? Not that. Uncooked chickpea, right? Because uncooked is smaller than, because size of a chickpea is pretty big. It's hard for that kind of size of a food to be stuck between your teeth. So uncooked chickpea. Second scenario is you took it out of your mouth. If you put anything from outside to inside, or you took something out and put it back in, and then you swallowed it, qada is necessary. Your fast will break. What does not break the fast? We're going to go through this quickly. Now, for a fast to get invalidated, remember this principle. It has to be a substance of consequence, solid, liquid, or gas. It has to enter through an opening of consequence. It has to reach a place of consequence, and there has to be no excuse. So this, we're just refreshing our memory, what we did before. This is what breaks your fast. So automatically, if something happens and it does not fulfill this criteria, your fast will not break. So now we go through some examples. So it's easy for us to identify what does not break your fast. Eye drops does not break your fast because it's not entering from a place of consequence. Right? Eardrops does not break your fast because ears are not an opening of consequence. Injections do not break your fast because they are not given through an opening. You don't inject yourself in the mouth. You don't inject yourself, into your nose. Right? Normally, injections are given on your body. Right? Unless a person is injected with something nutritious directly into the stomach, this will invalidate the fast. Right? So this is an except. Right? But normally, injections are given in the vein or in the muscle. That does not break your fast. If a mosquito, fly, dirt, or dust goes into your throat and you swallow it unintentionally, it does not break your fast because it's the excuse. But next time you should be more careful. Blood test. Does blood test break your fast? Does withdrawing blood break your fast? So blood test and blood drive, right? Does that break your fast? It does not break your fast, right? Because something is just coming out, nothing is going in your body, right? However, if a person becomes very weak whenever they have a blood test or if they, take out blood, if this makes the person weak, they should avoid it during Ramadan. Because it should not happen that you took a blood test which wasn't really necessary, and then you became weak and then you need to break your fast, right? So that wouldn't be really good, right? To have that happen. So that would be makruh then in that case to have the blood test done. But otherwise, you could go for a doctor's checkup, you could have a blood test, doesn't matter. Nicotine patch does not invalidate the fast because those patches are normally put somewhere else on the body. They're not put directly into the stomach, right? It's not going into a opening of consequence. Taking a bath to keep cool, vomiting unintentionally, brushing your teeth without toothpaste, none of this breaks the fast. Tooth extraction. So in principle, now again, common question: can I go to the dentist while I'm fasting? Can I get my tooth extracted? Can I get any other dental work done? So in principle, tooth extraction does not break your fast. In principle, dental work itself does not break your fast. But, big but, if any water or blood goes into your throat, your fast will break. So if you're going to have a procedure done in which it's very likely that some water or blood will go inside your throat, then you should not have the procedure done during Ramadan. Right? You should avoid it. But if it's a procedure where most likely the blood or the water will not go inside your throat, then you can have that done. Right? It's fine. Okay. So obviously tooth extraction is something where you will most likely bleed, right? So we should avoid it. Similarly, any other procedure in which there is a lot of water, a lot of blood involved. If there's a severe need, one should try his best that blood does not enter the throat. If blood does enter the throat, the fast will be nullified if the amount of blood is equal to or exceeds the amount of saliva. So for blood itself, we mentioned the rule before that if anyone is bleeding from their mouth, from anywhere in their mouth for whatever reason, if the blood is equal to or more than the saliva, then your fast will break. If it's less than the saliva, your fast will not break. No, so this is a general rule. For specific cases, we should always ask, right? Ask. The key thing is asking. Don't ask after, ask in advance. If you're going to have a procedure done, don't get it done and say, oh, is it okay that I got that done? Find out from before so you can reschedule it if needed, okay? Kafara. I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly. I don't want to take too long. We have, there's not too much left, but there's some important stuff left later on. So kafara again, if a person breaks their fast on purpose, for example, let's take the example of eating and drinking. A person ate or drank on purpose without any need to do so while they were fasting. Now you will have to do qada and kafara, right? So what is this kafara that we are talking about? So I'm going to explain this main aspect of kafara. To fast, if a person broke their fast, they ate or drank on purpose in the month of Ramadan, they knew they were fasting, they had no excuse to eat or drink, but they still ate or drank on purpose, then they have to kafara. What is kafara? That if one day is missed, that you have to fast 60 consecutive days. 60 days. So especially for our youngsters, sometimes we go to college and school and we're in that environment. So we have to be very careful we don't deliberately break our fast with food or drink, especially. Okay? Because if we do that, we have to fast 60 days consecutively. And not just 60 days without missing any day in between. If we fast 50 days and we miss the day, right? That means you have to start all over again. I'm just going to mention one point. Alhamdulillah, I just had the opportunity to go to England this past week. And it so happened that, when I was due to go there on Saturday, we had one person who was very close to us in our madrasa life when we were studying there. Uncle, we used to call him Yusuf Bhai, right? He was in his late 60s at this time. So when we were in madrasa, he always used to, he was in charge of all the food for the students, and our sheikh, the monthly khanqa that he has, the spiritual retreat that he has every month, with hundreds of people come from all over the country, he would be in charge of all the food and everything. So this uncle, he passed away. Make dua for him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants him maghfirah. Alhamdulillah, he was a very pious individual. He left his normal job, which he was getting paid pretty good. He left that to come and do the khidmat of the madrasa for a very minimal wage, right? So he left that just to do the khidmat of the madrasa, and for more than 20 years he was working in the madrasa, in the kitchen mainly, kitchen related stuff related to the students, taking care of all the needs of the students. And for 20 plus years he did this, and he just passed away in cancer, right, this past weekend. So the reason I'm mentioning him is when we went, then my respected Shaykh Salim Turah, he was mentioning some good qualities that Yusuf Bhai had. And one thing he mentioned, that towards the ending part of his life, he tried his best to increase his ibadah and to make sure he does not have anything left in related to huququllah, huququl ibad. So anything left that related to the rights of Allah or the rights of the servants of Allah, he made sure he did it. To the extent that he told that he fasted a few kafaras. So he told Shaykh, I'm going to fast a few kafara fasts. Like, why did you break your fast before? He's like, no, I never broke my fast. But I grew up in India. Sometimes, it's possible, maybe, not that I even know, maybe I might have broken my fast when I was young without knowing. Maybe. I don't remember that ever happening, but maybe it might have happened. So just to make sure I don't owe any kafara, I'm going to do a few kafaras. And his sons mentioned he did 2 or 3 kafara fasts. Meaning 60 days consecutively, he did 2 or 3 rounds of this. And his older son was saying, Junaid Sahib, who was also my ustad, he was saying that my father, 2-3 times that happened, that he started the kafara, he came up to 40 or 50 days, and then he missed the day, so he had to start all over again. So he did this. So this is a very serious matter. If this ever happened, that we did something which necessitates kafara, we should make sure we do the kafara in our lifetime, right? So just the importance that we have such people in this world, in this day and age, even though they're not even sure if they had to do kafara, but they still did it, just in case. Before I pass away, I have to make sure my kafara is done. Otherwise, I'll be answerable in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. Right? So I just wanted to mention that point, this lesson from his life. Now, if a person is not able to fast the 60 consecutive days for a valid Sharia excuse, and there's some other things you can do, I'm not going to go into the details, right? If someone does have that situation, they can come and ask and we'll explain it, inshallah ta'ala. This is not an option too, this is the actual thing you need to do. If you cannot do this due to a valid Sharia reason, then you go to these other options. It's not like you have a choice. I don't want to fast, I'm going to do this instead. It's not a choice. You have to do the fasting. If you cannot fast due to a valid Sharia excuse, for example, someone is sick, they cannot do 60 consecutive fasts, they're very old, right? Then they come to this other option and they do one of these things. Now, for kafara, with the 60 days of fasting, you also have to do the qada as well, so it's a total of 61 days. The kafara is only for breaking a Ramadan fast. If you break a nafil fast on purpose, it's only qada, is not kafara. Exemptions from fasting. What are some excuses for what kind of people do not need to fast? Number 1, sickness. If a person is sick. If a person is sick and their sickness is going to worsen, is going to get worse, right? By fasting, the sickness will get worse. Or by fasting, them becoming better will become delayed, right? Then they need to, then in this scenario, they don't have to fast, they can skip the fast and they can make up the fast later, right? And if there's a chronic illness where a person can never ever fast the full fast, even in the short days in winter, 12 hours, even that they cannot do because of a chronic illness, then they can do fidya. Fidya is something else which we'll discuss in the end, okay? So first excuse is sickness. If it's going to worsen or get delayed, then you can skip the fast, right? Now, how will you determine whether it falls inside under one of these categories, right? So for this, if you have an upright Muslim physician, or a person has previous relevant experience, or there's a clear sign. Now, what do we mean by an upright Muslim physician? So either you have a Muslim doctor who knows the importance of fasting and he tells you. What if you don't have a Muslim doctor, or it's a non-religious Muslim doctor who doesn't really care about the rulings of Islam, right? Even though he's Muslim? So in this case, or maybe in this day and age especially, sometimes the doctors are they know that you could fast, but for legal reasons they will not advise you to fast, because they know that if something does happen, so most likely nothing will happen, but if something does happen, you can sue them, right? So sometimes they refrain from giving you permission to do something, even though you could do it, to save their own back, right? So if the doctor is not Muslim, or he's non-religious Muslim, or he's giving you a judgment because he's scared, so he doesn't want to keep himself liable, that's why he's telling you, no, don't fast, right? And then in this scenario, the patient will take his word but use his own judgment as well, right? So if you're not sure, that is the doctor telling me I cannot fast because I really cannot fast, or because he just wants to save his back, which one is it? You don't know, right? Or any of the other two situations here, then you will take his word, but you will also use your own judgment, right? And again, the doctor is not being asked for a fatwa, he's being asked for his medical opinion. After you get the doctor's medical opinion, you should discuss it with an Islamic scholar or a mufti or someone, and sit down and discuss with it, and then see whether you actually should not fast or not, whether you're excused or not. So that's the first thing, right? That your harm is determined by this. Second way harm can be determined is you have previous experience. For example, there's a person, he gets flu, asthma attacks every year, all right, in the, for example, spring season. So every time, or he tries fasting in the spring, he gets an asthma attack and he's not able to continue the fast. So you have experience, you know for sure, 100%, that if I try fasting, it's going to have an effect on me. It's a very long fast, it's, for example, 15, 16 hours, and I'm going to have to end up breaking with the inhaler, right? So you have previous experience. Or a person has, sugar or something, and they know that if I stay hungry for more than these hours, I will definitely have a health issue, right? So you have past experience, and that can also be an excuse to do your fast later on. Or if there's a clear sign, meaning it's obvious that a person is very sick right now and he cannot fast. Masala, if a person suffers from an illness or has an asthma attack and there's no option but to take medicine or use an inhaler, can you break your fast? Yes, it's permissible to break your fast, but you will have to do qada. So the illness happens while you are fasting, so you could break it if it comes to that point where you have to break it, it's fine, but you have to do qada, not kafara. So only qada, so you have to do qada because you broke your fast, but you don't have to do kafara because you had a valid excuse of sickness, right? If a lady is in her monthly cycle, then she has to make up her fast later, right? Now there's different scenarios for a lady who's in her cycle, right? That number one, Ramadan has begun while she's in while she's in that state, right? Then she has to eat or drink in a way that no one sees her eating, right? And so she was already in her cycle and then Ramadan started, right? So in this scenario, she could eat or drink, but not in front of others. Second scenario is that at the beginning of the fast, she was not in her cycle, but the cycle came during the day. It started during the day, so in that manner, she has to break her fast and eat, but again, not in the way that other people see her. Third scenario, that she is in her cycle and it stops midday during the month of Ramadan. Then this lady, it will not count as a fast, but she has to conduct herself like a fasting person the rest of the day and do qada of that day later on as well. If a lady is expecting or nursing, right, and there's a legitimate reason and she feels that she cannot fast due to a legitimate reason, there's legitimate harm to herself or her baby, then she can miss her fast, right, or she can make it up later. Hunger and thirst. If a person is in severe hunger and thirst, not that you just ate 5 hours ago and now you're feeling hungry, no. A person legitimately, they didn't have food for 3 or 4 days and now food has come after 3 or 4 days, right? So they're at the verge of, dying, or the verge of, getting extremely ill, and now food has come, right? So for this person also, they can make up later. They can break the fast and make it up later. A traveler. So what is a traveler? Definition of a Shari'i traveler. If a person is traveling more than 54 miles. This is one opinion. Another opinion is 48 miles, right? So if whichever one a person is following, if you heard the 48 one and that's what you follow, that's fine. If a person is following the fatwa of 54 miles, that's fine. So you're on a journey and you do not intend to stay at your destination for more than 14 days. So you're staying there for less than 14 nights, okay? Then fasting, so now you're a Shari'i traveler. Now if you're a Shari'i traveler, fasting is highly recommended, but you don't have to fast, right? You could make up the fast later if you want to. Now, what are some scenarios of becoming a traveler? So this is a city boundary, right? This is where you live, and this is your house, right? We're in Nassau County, this is Queens. Queens is on this side, this is Nassau, inside this circle, and you're traveling. But you haven't left Nassau County until dawn. So Fajr is at, let's say, 5 a.m. Fajr starts at 5 a.m. At 5 a.m., you're still inside your city. You started traveling, you sat in your car, you're driving, you're on, LIE, but you're still on, you still haven't reached, the exit, which is on the border of Queens. You're still inside Long Island, and you're traveling, you're still driving, right? And now Fajr time comes in, and it's dawn. you need to fast. Because when the fast began, you have not entered into the ruling of a traveler yet. So you have to fast that day. This is scenario 1, okay? If you're still in your hometown, at the time the fast starts, you have to fast. Scenario 2, at the time the fast starts, you have already left your hometown. So let's say you have a flight to catch, and you left home from here, and you got to the airport before Fajr time began. Right? You got to JFK before Fajr time began, so legally you don't have to fast. It's good to fast if you can, but you don't have to fast. You can make up the fast later. Fidya. Now, so we spoke about kafara. Kafara was if you purposely break a fast, you need to fast 60 consecutive days. Fidya is something else. Fidya is for those people who are too old to fast, right? Who are too old to fast or who have a chronic illness and they cannot fast. So for them, if they cannot make up the fast as a qada, and the other option they have is fidya. Meaning if they cannot. So fidya is only an option where you're not able to do qada. So you have a very old person who does not have any strength to fast. He or she cannot even fast the short fast of winter. For example, right now is winter. So in winter the fast is very short. Right? The fast is what, maybe only 10 hours or so, right? In winter. He or she cannot even do that. He or she cannot even do the winter fast. Right? As qada. If you're able to do winter fast, you should make up. You don't have to fast let's say the Ramadan fast is 16 hours. You cannot fast 16 hours. But you could fast 10 hours or 11 hours in the winter. So you don't have to fast in Ramadan, but you have to make it up in the winter. But let's say you cannot even do that. Right? The doctor said you cannot stay hungry for more than 6 hours. You have to take your medicine every 6 hours. Right? Otherwise you can get a serious illness or your illness can increase. Right? For example. So such a person can pay fidya, expiation for each fast that you miss. You can pay a fidya. Now what is the amount of fidya? In easy terms, fidya is the same amount as sadaqatul fitr. So whatever the sadaqatul fitr amount is, that is the amount of one fidya. So for each fast you have to give one sadaqatul fitr amount. Right? So either 3.5 pounds of wheat or 7 pounds of barley or the equivalent in cash. So every year we have the poster of Sadaqatul Fitr. So inshallah this year we'll also put it up. What is the Sadaqatul Fitr amount? So if anyone has to do fidya and they cannot fast, they have fidya to give, right? Then they can give the one Sadaqatul Fitr amount for every fast that they miss. Fidya can be given any time after Ramadan begins. So not before Ramadan, you can give after the month of Ramadan begins. And once Ramadan begins, you can give fidya for the whole month in one go, that's fine. Who can accept the fidya? So same people who can accept zakat, who you can give your zakat to, you can give the same people fidya. So anyone who is eligible to receive zakat can also receive fidya. You can give fidya of one fast to multiple people, and you can give multiple fidyas to one person. It's both permissible. So, there's an alternate opinion as well, but majority of the fuqaha, they have written in the fatawa that fidya of one fast can be given to one individual or multiple individuals, and fidya of, for example, 30 fasts can be given to one person or to multiple people. Any scenario is fine. If a person paid the fidya, now let's say you pay fidya, a person was old, they were sick, they paid fidya, but through some miracle of Allah, they became better and now they're able to fast. You have to make the qada now. That fidya will turn into nafil sadaqah, and now you have to make up the fast. Right? So fidya can only be given for people who cannot fast at all. Right? Not for someone who will get better, who is in a temporary illness and will get better later. That person cannot give fidya. Okay? What are some frequently asked questions? When should you do qada? Qada should be done as soon as possible, before you pass away. And if, let's say, a person should also write in their will that if they have any qada fast to make, or for that matter, even any qada salat, they should write in their will that if I have any qada salat or qada fast, please give the fidya of that on my behalf, right, from 1/3 of my wealth. We should write that in our will. We should also we should update our will accordingly, how many qada we have, how many qada salah we have, and how many qada fast we have. We should also note that down somewhere, so the people after us, or if we pass away, they can give the fidya for that, inshallah. If a person has never ever fasted, meaning, so what is breaking a fast? What if you never fasted to begin with in the month of Ramadan? It's Ramadan, but na'udhu billah, a person doesn't fast at all. He or she doesn't make any intention to fast. On purpose, they don't fast. Do you have to give qada or kafara? It's only qada. So you're going to say, wait, someone started fasting and they ate on purpose, they have to give qada and kafara, and someone deliberately doesn't fast in the month of Ramadan. So why does that guy only have to give qada? So kafara is not only a punishment, kafara is a form of ibadah as well. Not fasting at all is haram. This person will be very, very sinful for not fasting on purpose without any valid excuse. So the sin is separate. But as far as the shari hukam of fasting goes, he only has to do qada, he or she. Right? But the sin that will be there for missing the fast on purpose, this was a very, very big sin, right? Which is separate. What is the ruling for smoking while fasting? Smoking will break the fast and you'll have to do qada and kafara. Should children fast? So non-baligh children, they're not obliged to fast, but they should be encouraged to fast. Start off with half a fast, quarter fast, and slowly, if they're able to, let them do a whole fast as well now and then, right? But they're not obliged to fast. What should a person do? But it was a sunnah of the Sahaba that they would make their children fast. They would make them used to fasting, right? So they would try and get them to fast so they get used to fasting later on. What should a person do if he has to break his fast due to a valid reason? So in this case, they can break the fast and then abstain from eating and drinking the rest of the day. So for example, a person is very sick, they had to take a medicine or they had to eat some food to get that sugar level up, right, or whatever. So they did that. So they should do qada later, but for the rest of the day, they should just not eat anything else. Meaning, don't say, oh, now my fast is broken anyways, now let me just enjoy myself and have a whole burger meal. No, not that. Okay? What happens if you eat or drink and you forget you are fasting? The fast will not break, no harm is done. Can you brush your teeth with toothpaste while you're fasting? It's makruh, because there's a possibility that it will mix with your saliva and enter your throat. But if it does not enter your throat, then your fast will not break. Well, you're gargling during wudu, some water reached your throat, will your fast break? Yes, your fast will break. But because this was accidental, you will only have to do qada. So water going down your throat because while doing wudu is not forgetfulness, it's accidental, and you will have to do qada for that. What is a summary of things that break your fast and don't break your fast? So these are a summary of some things that do not break your fast. If someone wants to take a picture, they can take a picture. There's 2 slides of things that do not break your fast. There's slide 1. And then inshallah we'll make this presentation available as well online, or we'll share it inshallah if someone wants to refer to it later. Slide number 2 for things that do not break your fast. And then we have things that do break your fast. Slide 1. And this is slide 2, inshallah. Okay, inshallah. So, alhamdulillah, this is the end of the fasting presentation. If anyone has any questions, you can ask, inshallah. Yes.
You said that the saliva, if the blood is more than the saliva, then
yes.
If you swallow it, what about if you spit it out?
So if you spit it out, it doesn't matter. This is if you swallow it. If sisters have questions, they can maybe message.
You said the asthma inhaler does not invalidate the fast.
Yeah.
Go back. Next one. Sorry, forward. One more. Next.
This is does not. This is does.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this does. This does inhaler. Yeah. So medicine inhaler. Only oxygen. So again, another point. Only oxygen without anything else mixed. If a person takes in only oxygen without anything else, this will not break your fast. Right? Oxygen. Right? But asthma inhaler usually have medicine. That's why that breaks your fast. Right? If you're taking in only oxygen without any medicine mix, that does not break your fast. But if it has some other medicine mix, it will break your fast.
I thought it was on the green side.
Yeah.
What is a nafal fast? What is the Ramadan?
So Ramadan fast is the fast you do in Ramadan, the Fard fast. Nafil fast is the fast you do out of Ramadan. For example, someone is fasting for Muharram, someone is fasting for Dhul Hijjah, someone is fasting any other Nafil fast, Ayyamul Bid, 13, 14, 15, or Mondays and Thursdays, that's all Nafil fasting. So Sunnah Nafil fast. Okay, that's the difference. Yes? So that is a question of what intention can you do, right? So for a qada fast, you have to be specific, that you're making qada for so-and-so Ramadan fast, okay? So you can say either the first fast that I missed, I'm making qada for that, or the last fast that I missed, I'm making qada for that. You can do that. No, it has to be separate. How can you do 2 fasts at once? There's no buy one, get one free over there, I'm sorry. Yeah. No, induced vomit. Induced vomit, which if you made yourself vomit more than a mouthful, that breaks your fast. So this is something which is mentioned in the books of fiqh, right? So it is leaving your body, but it's like the exact reason behind it. I'm gonna have to go and check it, right? It's mentioned in the books of fiqh. I'll check. I know what you're saying. I'll check. Yeah. Induced means that you made yourself vomit. Not that you wanted to vomit and you opened your mouth and it came out. That's not induced. Induced means you stuck your finger inside.
Just a question on you mentioned about if you have previous experience knowing that things will get worse, right?
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
common thing, right? If you know that you barely made it on, like let's say that 15th fast, 15th Ramadan.
Yeah.
You barely made it to that fast. And you know that from your previous history that if you fast the next day, you definitely have a health issue. Should you consult an imam or?
No, so in that case, maybe you consult the doctor as well just to make sure, right? See what the medical opinion is. And then, I mean, if you know for, like as you mentioned, you know for sure that if I fast, for example, I have this condition, I can make it through 5 days, for example, but if I fast the 6th day, something's gonna happen. Then in that scenario, you can skip that day and make it up later. So that's what experience would be, that you know for 100% sure. If you're not 100% sure, then it's better you just, to be on the safe side, you start it, and if you feel you're getting bad, then you just take the inhaler and make the qada later on. So that would be the more safe thing to do. Yeah, for nafil fast, even if you deliberately eat or drink during a nafil fast, same, sunnah, anything besides farad falls under the nafil category. Whether it's sunnah, mustahab, that all falls under the nafil category. Anything else?
I have one more.
Yeah.
If somebody is like, they have activity or sometimes, they can be very for further regarding that. If they don't eat, then it causes problem.
So you have to see how severe the problem is, right? So if you have acidity or something, and if there's a way around it where you can take some kind of medicine before you start fasting and you can get through the day, then you should do that. But if you know that if I don't eat, then I'm going to get very sick, then one option is that you start the fast, and then if that comes to that situation, then you eat and make qada later, right? You qada later, right? But we should speak to a doctor to see maybe if they can give you some kind of special medicine or something that you can take before the fast, and that will be.